Oh, great.
Allow us to collect signatures inside and I can go out afterwards. I just want to know who still needs to sign, that wants to sign the abortion petition. Because the guy won't be.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Actually, we had been collecting.
Come in and be seated. We're about to get started. And our time is somewhat limited today. The library closes earlier than they used to, so it means we have to do everything and be out of here in time away. I want to thank everybody for coming. This forum is co-sponsored by Sierra Club Local Missouri Group and New Missouri and Climate Leaders at Mizzou and Mid-Missouri Peace Work. We've been doing this for about a decade, and we always ask the council candidates, and often have had enough time to do the school board candidates as well, asking questions about the critical issues that we're facing in terms of climate change and other related environmental concerns. So our hope is that we will draw out some good information today that voters will make use of. We are taking questions from prepared questions the organizations that are sponsoring this have put together, and they will be sharing those from over here, and then we'll get the responses from the candidates. We'll go down the road this way one time, we'll do the next round like that, and then go around. So nobody's always first or always last or always in the middle. That's our process. We will do this for a little under an hour probably, and then we will move on to the school board candidates who will be arriving. Anybody have a process question about what we're doing? No? Okay. Well, we're going to be ready to go here, and we have two candidates from the second ward and the one candidate who is running for re-election from the sixth ward. So we did invite Lisa Meyer, who's also running in the second ward, and she declined. We always offer, if a candidate has a schedule conflict and wants to participate, that they can either send a surrogate who can give their answers, or can give us their answers in writing. We would have a volunteer read them, and we actually have a volunteer who agreed to read questions, but Lisa did not want to do that. So we have these two gentlemen to my right, and I guess people might have already heard Robert Schreiber is running for this seat. Lucio Bitoy has filed as a write-in candidate more recently. So the two of them and Lisa Meyer are running in second ward, and Betsy Peters, Dr. Peters has been on the city council for about 9 years.
9 years.
He's running for re-election, public servant. In any case, we're ready to get going. We're going to ask questions from here. Carolyn, you have the first question for the candidates.
Yes, I do. And I also do want to mention that we do have a webinar and people are attending on the webinar as well. And I want to mention for the people on the webinar, you're not going to be able to ask questions of the candidates because we've submitted those in advance. But if there's any problem with the webinar, you can use the question and answer to contact those of us in the room. So with that, thanks everyone. The first question is, do you consider climate change a real problem for our city? If not, why not? If so, please elaborate on your plan for addressing the issue and the time frame for various steps to address it. Would you support updating Columbia's renewable energy standard to include a goal of 100% by some future date? You have 3 minutes to answer this question.
Hello, everybody. Robert Schreiber. Yes, climate change is real. That is a known fact by now. The science is pretty much irrefutable on this. From about 1989 on, when Bill McKibben wrote his book, The End of Nature, which really blew the doors open on that. We know that climate change is real. We know the earth is getting hotter. We know that last year was the hottest year on record. We surpassed 1.5 degrees Celsius. There is no doubt about that. During the 1960s, we had Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, that kicked off the environmental movement. I see we're at a time now where those things are both prevalent. We have an environmental problem with the loss of species. We have a climate problem with the world getting warmer due to human caused climate change. So to elaborate on that, I would like to start. We got to start now. I mean, we're in the crunch time. We've already surpassed our 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. I think the city needs to start doing whatever it can to help put solar panels, get watts clean energy on the grid. That involves solar panels, that involves wind turbines. That also involves getting old houses updated with more insulation, more windows, and making them more energy efficient, which is also going to help customers save money on their utility bills. Green energy also helps do that. I'd like to see this done by 2030. I don't know if we can get there 100% by 2030. I'd be happy with 80%. That is, yeah, it is a real hard thing to do to get cities to be completely 100%. I think Burlington, Vermont has done it. It's a population much smaller than ours. And it took them a while to do it. And we have some projects that were canceled. There was a solar project that was going to be started here this year. It was canceled. I think we need to look back into that. And also the Grain Belt Wind Turbine Initiative that is going to be rolling through here. That's going to help get megawatts on the grid. And so I'm just for getting clean energy, renewable energy watts on the grid as quickly as we can to help solve the climate crisis that we are in. Thank you.
Your turn. I should also mention, we have a timekeeper here and we have a couple of timekeepers who are taking turns at that. And you can see they'll put up the sign and tell you when you're running out of time, they'll tell you when to stop. So it's your turn to go. Yeah, if you get close.
Okay, good evening, everyone. See up at 24. I'm a political scientist from Lincoln University, which here for a few years. Climate change is absolutely real, and oh, can't hear me? Okay, sorry. I did not realize I had to get that close to it. I apologize. Climate change is absolutely real, and to that end, I fully support Columbia's renewable energy standard to include a full transition to 100% renewables by 2030. We cannot continue to treat climate change as some abstract issue for the individuals in the far future to deal with. It's here now, it's accelerating, it's been exponentially, and failure to act accordingly is frankly irresponsible, obstinate, and anti-science. In our transition to 100% renewables, I would say that we need to do so with justice and equity before we get into the legislation, because it is widely known that climate change disproportionately impacts the most vulnerable and oppressed populations among us, despite these very groups contributing the least to greenhouse gas emissions. So climate mitigation, it will naturally create benefits, resources, reorganize spaces, and change the infrastructure in ways that all have been historically proven to have inequitable consequences for Black, Indigenous, Hispanic, and low-income whites. So with that being said, I would like to, in terms of specific, aside from just the 100% renewables, I would like to see mass reforestation efforts in the north side of town to offset some of these heat islands that we have, and to increase the tree canopy that we have in Second Ward, because a lot of the public health issues that we have are directly connected to the environmental issue. So if you're going to solve for the environmental issue, you have to solve for the social disparity issue. Also, I would like to see things like, in the Second Ward, specifically on like Business Loop, Paris, Big Bear, Van Diver, there's a whole lot of heavy industrial sites that some of them frankly aren't even being utilized anymore. And if that's the case, why are they still here? When that could be something like a community garden, community farm, another agriculture center, all of which should be owned and operated by people that live in that ward so that they can be active participants in the practice of their own liberation. That's weird.
Hi, well, thanks for inviting me to this forum. Certainly I've listened to the 100% renewable. So yes, climate change is real. I have to do the what it's an order. So yes, climate change is real, and Columbia needs to do what it can to mitigate that. Obviously, we are not an island, so we're only one part of it, but we should do what we can. I've certainly heard the 100% renewables by 2030. And I've certainly sat through a lot of the water and light board meetings where they struggle with how we can do this. And really, practically speaking, I don't think we can get there by 2030. But what I want to thank people for is for bringing it to the forefront so that it is a discussion every month about what can we do. I think Carolyn was the one who told me we have about 20% of our electricity is from our coal and natural gas.
No,
About
like
80%.
80%. Yeah.
Well, no, but we have 20% that we can't get out. We don't think we can get out of those contracts. Okay, yeah. So we have like 80% we could improve. So I'm not sure we can get there, like I said, by 2030, but we can certainly get a lot closer. So we need to really aggressively look at that. But not only where we get our electricity from, but how much we use. So if we can improve our conservation, and do a better job of, teaching folks that maybe, 70 degrees in the summer is really pretty nice. How about 75 and a fan, or 78? Let's talk about conservation, not just, where we get our electricity from. Let's talk about improving our rental properties or your homes, whichever, so that it's more energy efficient. So there are sort of like three parts to this, not just the, 100% renewables. Having said that, again, the water and light board and the city utility guys are working pretty hard to try and figure out how we can improve this. If the grain belt, whatever grain belt thing comes through, we will be getting a fair amount of renewables from that. But that's been delayed a couple of years. So hopefully that's moving forward. You're right, the solar energy thing, they stopped that because it was too expensive. So we are looking, and I want to thank you all for bringing this sort of to the forefront again, to say we need to be always thinking about this and what we need to do about it. So we'll see what happens.
All righty, we're gonna get our next question. Before it's coming up to read that, now we're going to start this time with Seal.
Testing. Sorry. I'm Nicole, I'm from PeaceWorks. And my question is, what energy efficiency programs do you think the utility should offer for low-income residents? What steps would you take to ensure utility customers are made aware of any new or existing energy efficiencies or offerings?
Thank you.
Oh, 2.5 minutes.
Oh.
Sorry.
I would like to see Columbia residents able to do something that's similar to a pay system. System that permits utilities to invest in resource efficiency and renewable energy on the customer's end and recover all of their expenses. So customers, they join the program, they can have energy efficient upgrade installed without having to pay the upfront cost or take on that debt. And these customers are only charged a tariff fee on their utility bill if they benefit from the savings, and they will only be charged for the information that they occupy the location where the upgrades are installed. So I have to get a handle on my breathing with this. But steps to ensure that utility customers are made aware of any new existing or newer existing offerings. Simply more emphasis on going to the communities that are the most cost burdened and most energy burdened by the utility bills and by more community forums. So we have a lot of community forums about a lot of things. We don't have very many about energy efficiency and about sustainability and about the offerings available for homes. And there's also private landlords don't necessarily want to go along with it just because a renter, hey, I signed up for this program with CMCA. The landlord doesn't have to agree to go along. And there's also, loosening the guidelines for people to be able to qualify for these programs that provide free energy efficiency upgrades.
Betsy?
So I would like his ideas, and I'm gonna write down the one about, the first one you talked about, which I can't remember, but, I think we need to get the word out to people about, energy efficiency, especially if it's in their homes. For landlords, if we can come up with some way that, we can get them to upgrade it without it being a major expense, that would be helpful. I know sometimes when I've gone through it, just looking at it, it's very cumbersome to try and figure out how to actually apply for it. It's just annoying, if nothing else. And so I think we need to both make sure that it's more available and that it's understandable and that it's easier to use.
Hey, Robert.
Okay. So a little bit of background here. I built passive solar homes, earth contact, energy efficient homes for 20 years here in Boone County. And we ran some rental properties. So this is in my wheelhouse. That is what we did. The energy efficient programs, I would like to see outreach, like Betsy was talking about. The city could help implement that to let landlords know what programs they can apply for to get some funding. We just had the $640 billion IRA bill that came through. I don't know if there's any funding left over in that, but there is stuff allocated in it for upgrade housing. Like I said, getting more insulation, better windows, better doors, and sealing them up tight. The thing with creating passive solar housing is they're about 80% more efficient than a regular house. And this is because you're getting solar heat gain in the winter and it's earth contact in the summer. So building better housing, when we can build new housing, helps that. And it's long-term savings for the renter or the home buyer. There are some great programs going on in Denver, Atlanta, Newark, New Jersey, and San Diego using shipping containers of all things, which can be stackable like Legos and insulating them really well. And this is kind of a double thing. We can use them for energy efficient housing, but we can also use them for low cost housing for low income people. There's been some success with this, and they're much cheaper than building a traditional house. And like I said, it's like Legos, so you can stack them, and that's fun. Thank you.
All right, I think we are ready for question number 3.
Okay, oops.
All right, I forgot to introduce myself earlier. I'm Carolyn Alberon, the Sierra Club. So question number 3, we're going to switch gears a little bit here and talk about another aspect of the environment. Do you think we should consider the needs of terrestrial and aquatic flora, fauna, wildlife habitat, and streams when making annexation, development, and parks decisions? Time is 2 minutes.
That's a pretty easy answer to that. And I think we do. I know we don't make everybody happy all the time when we do approve some annexations that people are not very happy about, but I feel like we do look at both, Rockbridge State Park is a good example of that. And listening to you all when you say, well, wait a minute, that's a little too close to the park, or maybe we need to look at how we can keep dirt from sliding into it, or what are we going to do with that? The same with our impaired waterways. We're certainly looking at that. That's a little harder because a lot of it has to do with people that run cattle and that cattle can get into the streams. But I do think we need to look at that. We need to weigh the pros and cons. One of the nice things is to try and make sure that we have, watersheds and water detention systems. So, yeah, I feel like we do try to do that. at least weigh the pros and cons of those things.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, yeah, we can't destroy the environment that sustains us. That should be very simple. But since we're in, what is it now, the 6th great extinction on the planet, where we are killing off species by the millions, I think we need to take a better look at it. The environment, we are part of the environment. The environment does not need us, but we are hurting it. I would, yeah, like to just, whenever we're thinking about building somewhere, do an environmental impact study to make sure that we are mitigating the damage to the environment around us as much as possible. Yeah, the planet would do just fine without us, but we're here, so we have to learn to live within it and be conscious of the ecosystems that we impact.
Absolutely, we can learn to live in harmony with our ecology. Our species will continue to erode the Earth's capacity to sustain complex life forms. We should be making the absolute minimal imprint on the ecology as possible, and if we do go about annexing spaces that are found to be vital to our that are home to our vital flora and fauna, those developments should be restricted to that which is wholly dedicated to carbon neutrality, carbon capture, and living with the ecosystem, not just simply looking to extract resources from it or create new revenue generating sources on those spaces. Just keep it short on that.
I'm ready for our next question, Nicole.
Hello?
How can Columbia encourage walking and biking and discourage traffic in the city? You have 2.5 minutes.
Robert.
All right, first, we got to expand public transit. That is a big one. We have, since COVID happened, we have taken down a lot of the bus routes around Columbia, and I think we need to get those bus lines up and running, not just for helping people that don't have vehicles get to work, but that gets cars off the roads, that gets more pollution out of the air, less congestion when you're trying to go to work. I'd like to see a public transit master plan. I think they are developing, the city is working on one of those in the next 3 years. That's what I've heard. And that would be working with the Transit Authority and CATSO, which is the Columbia Area Transportation Study Organization. So I look forward to working with them if I'm elected to help get more transportation, better transportation through public transportation. Look to see how Safe Streets and Roads for All is. There's a grant out there called Safe Streets and Roads for All. That is I want to see how that's working. I want to implement some e-bike programs. Now that could look like having e-bikes here at the library that people could check out, or have a program where you can get a voucher for an e-bike and ride it for a certain amount of time and return it. Or it could look like something like what LA is doing, where you get a transit wallet that helps you save up to buy an e-bike yourself. So these are all ideas I want to look at. And I think this helps with getting cars off the roads, reducing pollution, and making a safer city for us to move around. Thank you.
Okay, we can start by ensuring that there are protected bike lanes and bike parking sites all over the city. Something I saw an example in New York. They have these things called OniPods, which it's an app-based bike parking system that's free to the public. You just check in your bike, and I think they said the average time that people leave it there is maybe 24 to 48 hours. These especially need to be put in place in areas that are known to have low walking and low biking scores. And the city could help by providing some funding to the entities in town that help residents offset the cost of obtaining a bike. And maintaining a bike, which can be expensive both to start with a trail ready bike and to maintain it. And we also have to reduce speed limits in residential areas and surrounding areas. So that if someone wanted to let their child go to a local store to get whatever, they would feel confident that that child could make it there and back, either using public transportation, walking, or biking without any issue. Because at the stands, I'm a grown adult, and crossing Paris to get to Gardens on Paris would be perilous. So I can't imagine the thought of sending my kid to the store. Like, and I remember being a kid, I used to get sent to the store all the time. We all probably did. Like for various things, depending on your generation. But like, I'm sorry, I was thinking about also worry about you used to be able to get sent to the store with a letter from your parents to buy them cigarettes and stuff like that. But that's a bit of that nothing to do with this. I'm sorry. But yeah, like I can't imagine sending my kid, oh yeah, walk to the store, walk to Gardens to get me whatever, get something. I would not feel confident that they can make it there and back. I don't feel confident that people that are differently able to make it there and back. And that's another issue that we have to address with regard to our encouraging biking and discouraging traffic is, the accessibility issues. Lastly, all public transportation should be free and provided with electric vehicles.
So I like all your ideas. That works well for me. We do need to keep improving our electric buses. That's great. We do need a decent transportation system. An excellent transportation system would be nice. I thought we were going to get a report this year about recommendations for the bus system. So I hope it's not 3 years, because this is a pitiful bus system we have right now, but it might be 3 years dealing with cats, so I don't know. But, we do need to get a really robust transportation plan for our bus system. Or we need to come up with a better way to get people use public transportation than what we have. I'd like to see dedicated bike streets. Because I just drove over here, sorry to say that, in this lovely weather, but I just drove over here from my house, which is over near Boone Hospital. So right down Broadway. And I thought, when I was younger, I would have biked down Broadway, but I don't want to get run over. And you are going to get run over on Broadway. You can try some of the other streets, but you're going to have the same problem. And while the bike lanes are nice, I sort of think that all things for all people, we'll see how locomotion feels about. I know they want to use streets for everything. Everybody should be on every street, but I sort of think maybe we need to look at that in our older neighborhoods. Do we need to say there are some streets that are kid friendly and bike friendly and not car friendly? And then there are some streets that are car friendly. Like Interstate 70, you don't put somebody walking out there or biking out there. That's just crazy. And maybe we need to sort of reconsider the idea that everybody should be able to use every street. Otherwise, public transportation, safer ways to get around. E-bikes are great. I might have to get one of those pretty soon. Just any way that allows people to get out and around. Walking is the same way. If you're able to walk, I think we've got pretty good walkable city. So, and it depends what your neighborhood's like. We have sidewalks in my neighborhood and people walk in the street. And there are sidewalks at Old Hawthorne and people walk in the street. And I don't understand that. But then again, I would walk in the street as opposed to the narrow sidewalks, and they're not very level. So we'll just have to keep working.
Thank you. Carolyn, the next question for us.
Okay, question number 5. What are the major infrastructure projects you would like to see happen in Columbia in the next 5 years? The time is 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Would like to see the current plan changes to I-70 to include moving the interstate out of the north side of town altogether. And relocating it somewhere where the landscape and infrastructure is better suited to offset the environmental impact of interstate traffic. And because if it's not so harmful to the people around it, why does it always have to be in disproportionately Black, Hispanic, Indigenous, and low-income white neighborhoods? well, in communities. I would like to deindustrialize the second ward, as a crucial step to undoing the legacy of Jim Crow in Columbia. So that would be drastically increasing, tree canopy cover in the second ward. And conversion of industrial spaces and empty lots and heavy builders to industrial sites like agricultural sites like community gardens, community farms, and food co-ops owned and operated by the residents. And I would also like to see, some type of building codes that, just flat out, anything, any city-owned building or, property would need to run on renewables and have solar setups or whatever other technologies were available to that space. Because if the city would have to lead the charge on this. We have to lead by example. So if the city isn't committed to 100% renewable internally, we can't really expect the city to be committed to it externally. But that's it for major industrial projects. Infrastructure projects.
Thank you, Nancy.
I have my usual infrastructure project, sewer lines. We never look at our sewer lines until they break. When they break, then we have raw sewage, that affects people's health. So it's a public health issue. It's something that we generally don't look at, like I say, until I think we had a break last week and it required most of the night to clean it up, and it's probably not very cleaned up, but the sewer line's lined and working again. So it's one of those things that you don't see, but needs to be fixed. We have a lot of private sewer lines that are failing in the city. And like I say, we need to be paying attention to that, I think.
Yes, sewer lines. I think we need to take care of our old infrastructure. That is a given. A lot of cities don't budget for that. They want to build new subdivisions and new infrastructure, and that stays good, but we have to take care of the old stuff, or else we end up with old parts of the city crumbling and not being able to work. That is a vital part. I also like the idea of having more green spaces and tree canopies to help with the concrete hellscape that we've created. It's too much heat. Concrete absorbs all the heat. It's not good. I would also like to, see all the city buildings that can be made green and run off renewable energy. I would like to see that done. Am I correct in saying that the coal plant over by Stone Street, that is no longer working?
It's not a coal plant.
It's not a coal plant.
Natural gas.
It's a natural gas plant too.
And it only kicks in when MISO needs it.
Okay, I used to live right there next to that, and and when I heard it was shutting down, I was like, well, all of that space, that could be all solar panels, and we could tear down that tower and put up some wind turbines, and it could tie into the grid right there because it's part of the electrical grid. Getting watts on the grid, that is one of the big things that I can't stress enough. That is how we help solve the climate problem. Thank you.
Next question.
Question number 6. The University of Missouri has agreements with the city for electricity transmission purposes. Would you support the City of Columbia Water and Light in helping the university get access to more renewable energy?
Yeah, my understanding is that the city is entering into an agreement to provide the electricity for the university. So if we get more renewables through the city, then MU gets more renewables. I haven't really looked into whether MU itself would like to put up more wind turbines than the ones I've seen or solar. I don't know that it's a bad idea. I just don't know that anybody's really asked that or investigated it. So I can certainly add that to my usual list of things I learn when I come to these forums and then ask some questions. But I think that's fine. Anything that, I don't see them as separate from the city. They might see themselves separate, but if they want our electricity, then we'll do what we can to make it renewable.
All right, Robert.
So, I work for the university. full disclosure, I'm a maintenance man at the Terra apartment complex. I've written proposals to try to get solar panels on the apartment complex that I work at. I've written a proposal to make the entire fleet of vehicles that that the workers use to get around all day, to make those electric, to put covered parking spots in the vast array of parking lots that we have at university, and put solar panels on those and charging stations connected to those. I've been in talks with the who is it? The sustainability manager. So I've written proposals for these things just as a concerned worker. And I'd like to see it move forward. I haven't really gotten any concrete answers back, but I think the city working with the university and the university working with the city to make the city greener is a wonderful idea. Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Yes, I would honestly, at this point, I would say it would be nice to just see the city and the university in something of a race to see who could reach 100% renewable for their operations first. Also, I would also like to allocate some public funds to support ongoing research of the MU College of Engineering. Because right now they're working on some studies to break down PFAS in our drinking water. And as you know, a recent article by Missourian Science said that they detected forever chemicals in some well water samples. So if it's in the well water, it's only a matter of time before it's in our drinking water, or it probably already is in our drinking water. That's it.
right, next question.
We are gonna help keep you on time.
Yes, you are.
Efficiency.
Okay, the next question, number 7. Could the city of Columbia be doing more to make their municipal operations run entirely off renewable energy? If not, why not? If so, what would you do to make this a reality? 2 minutes.
Absolutely, we should work with current power providers to make the city run off renewables. That is one of the goals, right? To get to 100% by 2030 or 2035. Like I said before, I'd be happy if that was 80% at 2030, but we have to ramp this up. We have to work with everybody. That means working with the people that wanted to do the solar project that got canceled. Maybe we find a different company that can do a better job. Ameren is kind of the only gas company in town, but I think they are getting some of that IRA money, and maybe we could kind of nudge them in the direction of putting more green energy on the grid. I'd like to encourage the city to do what they can to move away from fossil fuels. This kind of goes back to shutting down that coal-fired power plant that is now a gas backup. But I think we could make that a example of, of trying to go green. You taking an old facility and then making it a greener facility and tying it right into the grid. But I think we have to work with everybody and to accomplish this goal. It's going to take everybody. Thank you.
Steve?
Yes, absolutely. It was one of the first questions. That was one of my first responses, was that that's something that the city should be doing. But I mean, you can't lead by do as I say, not as I do. So if we actually, do the thing, the city have to be the leader of this change. And actually to support that transition, I would be voting yes on any legislation that would earmark funds or just call for a dedication to switching to entirely renewable energy by target date 2030. And any future budgets that did not appropriate funds for that, I would vote no.
Right, let's see.
I need your microphone, although I can yell pretty well, but probably not good enough. I'm not sure how this is that much different than the first question. The more renewables we can use, fine. I'm not sure how we can make the city completely 100% renewable. Was it Jim Windsor who was talking Monday night about how when it gets dark and we don't have any sunshine, that we don't have good battery power, so. Anyway, I think we need to move forward to do as much renewable energy as we can. I'm sure we can figure out what percent of that would be the city, but I would rather work more for a global. How much renewable energy can we get? How much can we reduce? How much coal and natural gas that we use? And as a result, that would make the city more renewable energy along with everybody else.
All righty, go, next question. And I believe that this is the last question in this. We're doing great, getting through here. We're gonna have time for a little intermission after this question. People can get some snacks and use the bathroom and things like that, and then we'll go to school board after that.
All right, question number 8. Columbia is currently using the 2018 International Energy Conservation Codes, aka IECC, as the basis for local building codes. Do you support adopting the 2024 IEC codes?
So the draft residential document I saw was about 29 pages, so I still need a little bit more time before I can say that I fully support everything in it, but based on what I have read so far, I'd be willing to support adopting that, the 2024 IECC, but I do reserve the right to call for amending it to, better suit, an emphasis on equity and, more, auspicious goals.
And that's
And I also have not read the 229 pages, so, but that's why we have a building and codes commission, bless their hearts, to look at that. And I'm sure they will, and they'll give us their opinions. I'd like to know how much it actually improves energy efficiency versus how much more it costs to do that. The last time this came up, I guess probably in 2018, I mean, they came to us and they said, well, we can go for 6-inch walls and as opposed to 4 inches, we can do all this, but it's going to increase the cost of homes. So I think we have to sort of look at the pros and cons of that. And what we could do, how much of an improvement this would be, I guess is what I'm saying. And I have to rely upon other people who know more about that stuff than I do, so we'll see what they have to say.
Robert?
I was at the 2018 meeting for the IECC codes. I think that was the one where they were making every house solar ready. So you had to have a certain percentage of the roof that didn't have pipes coming up through it. There had to be space in your breaker box to connect all the wires and the inverters. But I also have not read this newest report. But as a passive solar earth contact home builder for 20 years, we were kind of ahead of the game all the time on that. So, and in the long run, it saves you money. It might be some more upfront costs. I think our initial cost was usually 10% higher on our custom homes that we did. But in the life of a house and then moving on, passing that down to generation because they last, you save money. You don't spend as much on bills. And I think that's what people are really looking for. It's not looking at how much the upfront cost is. It's what you save over the life of a house. And that helps the environment ultimately. So that is one of the things I got into the home building business for, was to make better houses that last longer, that help reverse climate change. I mean, that was my job for 20 years. So thank you.
Right, well, I want to just consult with my colleagues here. We are right now we're about 15 minutes ahead of ourselves. I see a couple of options. One is we could take a fairly long intermission. The other is that we could give people in the audience the opportunity to ask questions, which is something we don't usually do, but because we've wrapped up as quickly as we have this time, would people like to ask questions?
Yes.
And maybe keep it to 2-minute responses from the candidates?
And also if they can try and keep their questions related to the climate and the environment.
Oh, definitely. There's lots of important issues. We're not going to discuss all of them tonight. All right, well, let's start off with Dick. and then Alice, and we'll see who's next.
What's the best way to encourage city staff to speed up energy efficiency in city buildings?
And one thought is that we might need to ask people asking questions to come up, so that people are hearing this on the Zoom. will be
Well,
able
you
to
could
do
just
that.
repeat it to a bit short.
Yeah. Dick's question, I guess. Okay.
Okay, what's the best way to encourage the city staff to improve energy efficiency in city buildings?
I think we'll start with Betsy.
I'm not sure that saying that the city staff has to do it is different than asking the city staff to look at renewables for the entire city. So I'm not sure exactly,
Energy efficiency. It's an energy.
energy efficiency. How to improve that in the city buildings?
Yeah.
Well, I think the new city buildings, they've done that. That's true of City Hall. I guess the new buildings that we have acquired for whatever reason, we could certainly look at solar panels or improved energy consumption, decreased
Most
energy
city
consumption.
buildings are not new.
Right, and so then we would have to see about retrofitting them. So I don't know, aside from asking them and seeing what they can say.
Robert?
I think we have to take an inventory of all the buildings that the city has, look at their age, and then look what would be appropriate cost wise to get them up to a standard that we think we want to be at. If it's an old brick building, we could talk about quickest, cheapest solution, more insulation, better doors, better windows, making it airtight. Love ground source heat pumps, love solar panels. Yeah, that is, those are some easy steps, but we have to take inventory before, we can't fix what we can't measure. Or what we haven't measured. The new buildings, I believe Betsy is right, I think they're LEED certified. So those are good, but there's upkeep on those too. You know, everything's got upkeep, but we have to look at what we have and what we can do to make it a little bit better.
So the question was how to best encourage city staff to actually make these changes. Educating the populace and encouraging and organizing them to put pressure on city staff to make those changes.
Alice, do you want to come up and ask your question up here?
Can I have one?
Yes.
I just wanted to add, so for education for the audience, that the city staff actually has already completed an inventory of all the city buildings. It's something that they were working on as part of the climate action and adaptation plan. And they have been, so they've identified which ones are the worst, how much each building's using, that type of thing. So the next phase then is to, you know, take the worst offenders and figure out a plan for them. I know they've already also gotten a grant to work on one of the major buildings. So there is work in progress, but like with most things, the way our city council can help is to make sure that we're allocating you know, priority money to making those changes if we can't get a grant like they did with the one building.
Alice, next question from.
Okay, just real quickly, Representative Adrian Plank is here, and during the intermission, he's a big supporter of renewable issues. If people want to talk with him about what's going on at the state level, there he is. But here's my question. Perhaps this has been solved, or better solved, but 40% of housing in the city of Columbia is rental housing, which famously are not always very energy efficient. One of the proposals, and perhaps you could suggest others, was to tie energy efficiency to our 5-year inspections. I don't know if there's been movement on this. It's something that Dick Parker worked on for years. But it is really important to us dealing with energy efficiency in Columbia.
Robert, you got one?
Yeah, classically, landlords are supposed to put a certain amount of their income back into the house. That is for repairs, that is for things like upgrading windows, putting more insulation in the attics. Whether they do that or not is kind of up to them right now. I would support us kind of looking into and possibly grading some of these rental houses. Making a sheet and have some grades on them to where we can say, all right, if you live here, you're gonna pay this much, but you're also your utility bill is gonna be a little bit higher because they didn't put money back into it. I don't know how we get landlords to do that. Maybe use some federal incentives that the IRA program has put out there. I think we could look into that, but yeah, we need to upgrade all of these old houses because they are old and not efficient, and that costs the renter more.
Yes, I would support, implementing, adding yes, I would support adding an energy efficiency, standard to the 5-year inspection plan. And also, I think that we would need to take measures to just get more housing in the city that is not under the purview of the Missouri exemption law, which prevents any state or prevents any municipality from putting certain restrictions on rental properties. So if we were to do something like amend the budget to put more money into the Columbia Land Trust, they can build homes that are outside of the purview of the preemption law. And they can mandate that these structures have to be energy efficient and rent controlled in perpetuity.
That's,
I think, again, there's a couple options, I guess. One is that with the inspections, you could add an energy efficiency. You know, you can ask the city to come out and do an energy efficiency evaluation of your home. So you could do that, and that's been suggested. The question always is money. Who's gonna pay for that? Is that something that you're gonna expect the landlords to pay for? And that's fine. But then when the landlords have to raise the rent to pay for it, then people scream that, you know, the landlords shouldn't raise the rent. Well, that's where they get their money to take for the energy efficiency audit or anything else. So I'm not opposed to it. I'm just pointing out the practicalities of the whole thing. It would be nice to know about that. The other thing is that we probably need to look at, and that's one of the things I'm hoping the Central City overlay group will be looking at is how do we either use these old properties, or at what point are these old properties just need to be torn down and need to be rebuilt, and something that looks nice, that works well, that's a heck of a lot more energy efficient. And I was speaking to a landlord this morning who was telling me it's $60,000 to $100,000 for him to upgrade this house. And he's wondering whether he would be better off tearing it down and building something more energy efficient. And I think we have to get over the idea that every affordable house in Columbia is something that we have to save. Because affordable probably means it's not energy efficient. It is an old house, it is on a crawl space. And while I love old houses, sometimes I think we just have to realize that a 60 or 80-year-old house has outlived its usefulness. And then we need to see how we need to replace that without destroying the look of the neighborhood. So always things to work on.
right. I think we have time for one more question from the audience, and then take a short and come back to the school for the candidates. If there's somebody who has a question you'd like to ask of the candidates here, come on up. We'll get you mic'd and
A couple of years ago, I had a disaster at my house. My wife and I had to move into a motel for 6 months. I took a shower every day, and it took 5 minutes for me to get hot water. And I thought, there are 100,000 hotel rooms in this town. I don't know how many there is, but there's a lot. And if every one of them takes 5 minutes to get hot water to that room, I just thought, what a waste that was. Something has to be, if something can be done about that, it needs to be done, because that is so wrong on so many levels. It just irritated me. I want the city council to know about that.
and basically, what would be called for in that case is point of use or on-demand water heaters in each room in the facility.
If we require that for the hotel building,
We look into. I don't know that we have to have answers from everybody on this one, but.
Yeah, I think we all agree.
Okay.
I think we all agree that we would prefer not to waste 5 minutes of water to get hot.
Okay,
So questions have been please.
is there another question in the audience? Yes, come on up.
But this is an issue that is hangs heavy on my heart, and it has to do with our recycling. And I want to get more involved. I want to be able to recycle clamshell. And I want to understand as a citizen, what is going on with the recycling program.
Okay, we'll start with, we'll start with that. Betsy's turn.
We're gonna start with me anyway. Well, you know, we just finished a recycling evaluation as to what we should do with our recycling. And we actually had a work session about that, sort of to look at what the consultants said. What we're gonna do right now is continue what we're presently doing, which is having all of these recycling centers. We're hoping once we get the roll cart thing under control, which our optimistic city manager thinks will be in March. That we will hopefully be back to curbside recycling every other week. Which should help our recycling centers and improve the recycling that we're able to do. Then the recommendations from the consultants were to consolidate some of the recycling centers. And to have someone there as an attendant and have hours. To which we said, well, how about like 6 in the morning till 9 or 10 at night, so that people can drop off the recycling, but then they're not using them as trash. Dumps kind of thing, and that should improve the recycling that we're able to do because it won't be contaminated. So it's that kind of, I mean, we're working forward. It's been hard because of the backsliding, but now that we increase what we pay our solid waste guys and we're getting more solid waste guys, and we're getting a more efficient system, we're hoping to get back to recycling and more efficient recycling soon.
Robert?
Yeah, I heard about the recycling center. It's what, 20 years old now?
Oh, yeah, the MERC, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Waste.
there's been lots of talks in trying to upgrade that itself, which I think needs to be done. Is the city looking into that? All right. But yes, I want to see the recycling back to curbside like it used to be. I used to put my stuff in the blue bin. Any of you remember those? But yeah, roll cart curbside, I would like to add to that, some composting. I think other cities do that. You could do your yard composting, you could do your food composting. And then we could start creating our own, soil for these lovely community gardens you were talking about. But yeah, but we also, with recycling, I want to address the elephant in the room, which is we need to cut back on our single-use plastics. That's really bad for the environment. It gets into all the trophic levels, messes with humans, messes with animals. Yeah. Thank you.
So I would agree, we need to drastically reduce single-use plastics. The city could, just make sure that they, as always, take the lead on this and make sure that the city itself isn't using a lot of single-use plastics. We could work with local grocers to help them phase that out in their stores. I believe Aldi, they got rid of all their plastics, or at least most of them. And also, I would also like to see more emphasis put and research done on where our recycling is going and where it's ending up. Because if we are just getting our recycling and everything and collecting it, it's just going to another district, going to toxify a distressed population in the global south. What are we really doing?
I would like to mention too, that the plastic plates in this room will be washed, so please don't throw them away, they'll put them in the sack at the back of the room.
Right now, come back by 6:40 and we'll be ready for the school board candidates. Let's give a applause.
And thank you all for being forced and taking questions from the audience.
Wow.
Since we didn't say we would.
I thought we were gonna get off light.
We gotta get the word. I think it comes with the other. There's that with some public service announcements too.
If it's like. Yeah. But I got a lot of. Thank you. I don't know. Well, I'm not getting.
Yes. Just a little late. Yeah. Thank you. There are many.
And until the people on the webinar will be getting started soon. We've got the city council members coming to their seats, so just give us another minute. Everyone, it's time to get started for the city council part of the forum. Oh, sorry, school board. I said the wrong thing. School board part of the forum. We already did city council. Excuse me.
It's a little bit less convenient for them.
Yeah,
but-
they have to hold on.
Is Beanie coming?
Yeah, I think she just.
Okay. Oh, that's right. She had a prior commitment. I take odds. Everyone, is this on?
Carolyn, you got a question, yes?
Yes, I did want to make one quick announcement. All right, can you hear me on this mic? I just wanted to announce that Alice Turner is here and can collect signatures on the Abortion Rights Initiative petition. And there's not going to be anybody outside after the meeting ends, so if anyone would like to sign that, you can just see Alice, she's waving her hand here. And it's also back there? Yeah, okay. So we have a couple of people here that will take your signature on that. And there's also the minimum wage petition in the room. You can also sign that one to get $15 on the ballot. All right, Mark, over to you. Definitely.
So we're gonna go to 6:45, okay. Well, we will get started. Want to welcome people who have arrived for this part of our evening. And we'll just mention very briefly, the candidate forum is co-sponsored by Sierra Club, Missouri Group, by.
Mark, they say online they can't hear you, so maybe just a little louder.
Okay, can you hear me better now? Okay, so this is co-sponsored by Sierra Club, Missouri Group, your New Missouri, Climate Leaders at Mizzou, and Mid-Missouri Peace Works. And I believe this is the 10th consecutive year we've held a candidate forum prior to municipal elections. And they've been focused each year on climate, energy, and related environmental concerns. This year we had the city council candidates a few moments ago, and now we're going to be doing the school board candidates and asking them a series of 9 questions that they've received in advance. And they'll have 3 minutes each if they need that much time for their answers to the questions. And we'll start off with Carolyn reading the first question.
Okay, hello. So the first question is, do you support enhancing science education and expanding cross-curriculum studies to offer better opportunities to understand the cause and effect of human activity on the environment and climate change? What is our school district currently doing well in supporting this type of education on climate, sustainability, and consumption issues? What could we do better? How?
Start off with John. We're going to go this way. We're going to rotate so that the next one will start off with Alvin, then with Jean, but everybody will get to be first, middle, or last, depending on which question. But you want to start us off, John, that would be great.
Yes,
And hold the mic close up, so.
all right. Yes, I support enhancing science education and expanding cross-curriculum studies to offer a better opportunity to understand the causes and effects of human activity on the environment and the climate. CPS is currently offering environmental science in 11th and 12th grades in all 4 high schools. This is for students that are interested in and concerned about the environment, conservation of the natural world, and the effects of the effects human population have on the planet. Also, there's an AP environmental science class with units that include population dynamics, earth systems and resources, energy resources and consumption, air pollution, water and land pollution, and sustainability. What we could do better is when addressing climate and environment concerns, I think we should use simple language and try to be consistent, I think, with it. And when dealing with students in the classroom, try not to use fear as a way to get children involved. I remember 35 years ago, 30 years ago, when everything was about the ozone layer and CFCs, and that we were all going to burn up. I also, remember 15 years ago, it was about global warming and that Florida was going to be, under the ocean pretty soon, and that there'd be more hurricanes and they'd be way more intense. Also now it seems like it's gone to climate change, which is caused by carbon and causes global warming and all kinds of different climate changes. And so it's just seems kind of inconsistent. Climate change in general, I think, is just a general word. I personally think that the climate has always changed, and so we need to use language that I think is less general and less vague to describe these situations, especially dealing with kids. I do believe that CFCs hurt the ozone. I do believe that carbon increases temperatures on the earth. I believe that carbon causes the climate to change. And so we just have to present these things to students in a way that represents both sides of the spectrum, and so they can hear from both sides of this debate, because there are a lot of scientists on both sides that have a lot of different opinions on how to solve it. So thank you.
All right, Alvin, you're next.
Good evening. See here.
I think you can just.
Hold it, just hold it.
Just hold it. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Alvin Cobbett, and I'm running for the school board. In reference to the question, yes, climate change is real.
And I can only say that I just wish that we had come to that conclusion, a few years ago. Because right now we're playing catch up. But I do want to say that I have found that the, school board and Columbia Public School System has kind of a really aggressive plan for the climate change and becoming sustainable, because they released a milestone climate change action plan, and I kind of agree with it. Simply because it covers everything, and evidently they have gotten together and they looked at sustainability in all its forms. And they also teach educational environmental awareness in the schools. I don't know exactly which one of the schools they teach that in, but I do know that it's happening. And the goal is to advance the overreaching sustainability initiative in all the schools. There is a plan, and the school board has been a part of that plan, along with the vision of the superintendent to bring all of the rooms and all of the spaces and all of the buildings up to a sustainable code in the very near future. And I also like the fact that the long-range intentions of the public school system is to maintain and keep up with the changes and make the necessary changes as they go. It is best to be out in front of it than to be behind it. And so I am all for what they're doing now, and I will encourage the school and the board to continue to be aggressive in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. It's Gene's turn now.
Gene, this mic's much better.
Great. Thank you so much. I apologize for being a little bit late. I had a class and so I did it upstairs in one of the study rooms. So I could get there as fast as possible. In terms of curriculum that the Columbia Public Schools is using in the way they're approaching the science curriculums, I think there's a couple of different things. There's the specific classes that Mr. Potter mentioned. I think there's also place-based learning, which is really important. There's going out to the nature school, which was a joint project that the Columbia Public Schools had a huge part in, and that is now the building itself. Things are getting finished up, but groups have been going out there. The Teton science trips, things like that. And I want to emphasize those because those are experiential experiences, I guess, sorry, poor phrasing. Those are experiences, which has a different type of impact. It's a different type of learning on our students. And I think especially when you're talking about the natural environment, being able to experience it, to understand what's happening is really important. I think that we have constantly curriculum reviews. So we have a really good science department. They're constantly updating and reviewing curriculum, looking at different ways things can fit in. And then that includes the ways that causes and effects of human activity are affecting our environment. And that can happen in a lot of the different science curriculums, and the teachers can introduce that. We also have agriculture, sustainable agricultural greenhouse classes, things like that. So I think it's a broad spectrum of ways that it can be addressed in the curriculum. I think that the different schools are also looking at how they incorporate those experiences, those nature trips. I know when my kids were especially at the elementary school level, they would walk down to the creek, right? They would get to experience things there and then be able to talk about the natural cycles, how everything was happening. So all of that is really important, and just ways that we continue to incorporate and make sure our students are informed and make sure our science curriculum is keeping up to date with the new information that we are getting and that we're finding out from different research.
Thank you, Gene. Before we go to the next question, I realized it was something I wanted to say at the beginning, which is, unlike many elections, in this election, you get to vote for two candidates. Rather than having a ward system like the city does, where people represent a geographic area, all of these members of the school board are at large. And every year we elect 2 or 3. And right now we have 3 candidates here and they'll be vying for these 2 seats. I'll ask Nicole now to read question number 2.
Reducing the energy footprint on our buildings and facilities saves utility costs, models sustainability for our community. Excuse me. What are ways you believe our district spaces can work towards increased energy efficiency?
All right, Alvin, you'll get to go first on this one.
Okay, well, first, I think that some of the things that they're already doing has been, again, pretty aggressive. Like, for example, doing place-based learning, like at Fairview Elementary School and 2 Mile Prairie, where students learn about the environment. And they even have a garden, 2 Mile Prairie, and they have other outdoor activities. Fairview has the pond where they study ecosystems and learn about keeping the environment clean and safe. And there's a host of things that they're doing. And I am impressed personally with their learning and studying about sustainability, about the possible, all of those things that help keep the environment safe and clean. So that's kind of it for me. I'm not too well versed on this, but most of the things that I understand, I get from talking with other people that's within the school systems. And also, I also talk with people out in the community. And so sustainability is real, climate change is real, and I do support the efforts of the school board.
Thank you. You get to go next.
So in thinking about how we can reduce our energy footprint, how the school district itself can model some sustainability, I think like many of these things, there's no one size fits every building, one size fits all. We have a lot of buildings in our district, and the district covers a lot of square miles. This means that different things need to be applied to different buildings, but there are some overarching things. One, the district recently finished a very comprehensive facilities audit. That was done so that they could both see what are the repairs that need to be done to buildings, and also as a way to be able to evaluate the sustainability of the buildings that were there. There's a lot of ways that older buildings can be upgraded and can be made more sustainable. There is also a point where sometimes the costs might outweigh a new building, or we might need a new building because of space, things like that. So that is something that is ongoing right now, that is being looked at, and the district will have in the next school year a new chief operations officer who will be putting into effect and making recommendations to the board about what we should be doing. What are the deferred maintenance things that are urgent that need to be done to keep our buildings functioning, and also to upgrade and make them more sustainable. So if we have to replace windows, we know that newer windows are more energy efficient. If we need to fix roofs, we know that a lot of the roofs are able to now last for longer. Things like that, new heating and air system. Not everything can be replaced all at once. There's a cost to that, like a dollar cost. And I know that there's also an environmental cost sometimes of not doing it. And that needs to be weighed sometimes. In addition to that, I think that can also work on ways to reduce the actual cost. So in trying to keep the actual dollar cost down in terms of payments, right, for gas, for electric, for water, we're trying to make sure that all of our facilities are gonna be as efficient as possible. Again, it's good for the environment, it models what we want, and it also can provide cost savings for the district, which with the number of buildings that we have adds up really quickly. And then that money can be allocated to those upgrades, to teachers, to helping our students in other ways. So I think all of those things kind of wrap together to model what we want to be happening for the schools.
Thank you, Jean. John, you're next.
Could you please repeat the question for me?
Reducing the energy footprint of our buildings and facilities saves utility costs and models sustainability in our community. What are ways you believe our district spaces can work towards increasing energy efficiency?
Yes, one would be, doing an audit of all the buildings, especially the older ones. I think, insulation, windows, are a big way to save energy. I also think that the district should, maybe implement a policy that, regulates the temperature in the buildings. It's something I'll agree on. I know some buildings can be at 9 degrees in the summertime, and then other buildings are at 72. I think we could find a happy medium to, ensure that all buildings are at the same temperature, when in the summer and in the winter. So they're, that way, it's just consistent throughout the district. But upgrading the facilities to make sure that they're energy efficient, are some of the best ways to cut down on the footprint. Also, the buses, I think that, maybe in certain temperatures that they don't sit outside idling. I think that they could, turn the buses off when in good weather and, reduce, carbon output that way. I also think that, we should, facilitate, bicycles. I think maybe even have a PE credit, maybe a semester for, kids that want to ride their bikes, more than a mile to school and back. I think this would, help with, exercise and cut down on, individual transportation to and from school, along with, improving the health of the students. And, of course, during good weather, there'll probably be a lot of things to work out in that, but, just trying to come up with ideas that, help students and help the carbon footprint, of the schools be reduced. There could be a lot of, innovative ideas. Yeah, maybe PE credit for bicycling to school would be one of them. Thanks.
Carolyn, I think we're ready for question number 3.
Excited about getting a PE credit.
I would have liked that when I was in school. Could have avoided dodgeball. Okay, number 3. Do you support the CPS urging city and state leaders to allow school buildings to have greater access to renewable energy, including the ability to purchase 100% renewably generated electricity? Would you be willing to pursue resolutions and public discussions on this with municipal and legislative leaders?
Confusion over which question we're on.
I think there wasn't a change or an update to the questions that were sent. And so, yeah, they're a little out of order and a little different than what.
Okay, so it's the one about talking to city leaders and school officials, or being the state leaders. Did that kind of happen?
Yes. Talking about purchasing renewable energy, right, and pursuing, okay. All right. Right, So I think, yes, I think anything that the school can do to, one, help reduce some of the costs and also help reduce environmental impact are things that as individuals and potentially as a district, we should be pursuing. I think that it is also really important to remember that the district is bound by the laws that exist. So unlike, or more specifically, especially because of those laws, because our district gets a lot of attention from Jefferson City for many different reasons. It is really important that we are not going outside of those bounds. So what are the different things that might look like? I think if we had the option to purchase cost-effective renewable energy, it's something the district should be looking at and should be considering. Making that energy available for purchase is something that also takes a community effort because it has to happen outside. It has to be an option from our energy provider, from the city. It has to be allowed by the legislature. So I think these are really important, and I think that it also wraps into a bigger conversation about how is our community showing up, both for our residents and also for making opportunities for the district and our businesses and other places that do have higher energy consumption. How are we helping to get things accessible so that it can happen? I think there are a lot of different conversations that can happen with city and legislative leaders. I also have the time here. Including things around transportation, which I know is not the next question one down the road, if depending if the order gets changed or not. And other issues as well. So I don't think it's just about the renewable energy, but that's obviously the big one. And within what is allowable by law, I am very supportive of the district pursuing those options.
We're ready, Nicole, for question number 4. Oh, I'm sorry. My glitch.
Yes, I would advocate for, sustainable energy that with no carbon offsets. I know, it might be a long way out, but in my opinion, the ultimate source of power in that regard is nuclear power. I know that Missouri in general supports nuclear power with the Callaway nuclear power plant, and the university has a reactor. It doesn't produce power, but it's for medical innovations. And so we have embraced nuclear power here, and I think we should partner up with the city and the county and the state to really push for that renewable, sustainable resource, which is nuclear power, and it doesn't have any carbon offsets. Anything that we're using now, we're burning coal for, which puts out a lot of carbon. In the meantime, because I know that's a long drawn out mission, I think we need to work on natural gas. I think it's probably the least carbon emitting energy resource. And so I think that's the best way to get sustainable, clean energy. And so that it's yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I am in favor of maintaining our buildings. We must do everything that we can towards decarbonizing all of the buildings that's within the district. We must also look towards using more inefficient and fittings, with the solar panels. And if the cost of replacing those panels, and maintaining solar panels are within our budget, then we have to find creative ways to do it. And as that relate to the budget, if we invest now into bringing our buildings up to the standard, imagine the savings that we will get within the next year or 2 years or 5 years down the road. It would be a substantially more. So the investment into bringing our buildings up to code, up to date, is really important. And the sooner we do it, the better off that we will be. Thank you.
Sorry.
We're gonna have Nicole come up and ask question number 4. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page though. Who's,
Number 4.
okay,
What is?
number
4 was actually number 2.
Oh, no. Well, we're square now.
Okay, we're spread out.
All right. Question number 4.
okay, Nicole.
A large part of CPS's carbon footprint is student and employee transportation. Do you support efforts to reduce per person vehicle miles traveled, such as facilitating walking, bicycling, carpooling, etc.? Suggestions have been made to stop vehicles, especially the diesel buses, from idling while waiting and transitioning buses from fossil fuels to electric vehicles. What are your thoughts on these suggestions? Do you support utilizing city transportation if it were permitted by law?
And this starts with John.
All right, I used a couple of these answers earlier, but like I said, the PE credit for promoting bicycling and even walking or running. Also the change from buses from diesel to electricity. I think that there's a lot of debate that needs to go on there. I think there's an infrastructure issue. I think with the power grid, I think there's a lot of things that are transformed going to electricity and you know, during real hot weather, when all the air conditioners are on and stuff like that, I think that there could be potential for power outages and things like that. There are some downsides to electric school buses, especially in cold weather. One of the incidences we had here just a few months ago was ice and buses getting stuck on the ice and being stuck for hours on end. And heating the buses really drains the batteries quick. So I'd hate to see a situation where kids were stuck on a bus in the freezing cold without heat because the batteries ran down before they were able to get help. My kids also go to Ridgeway, which is a lottery school, and the buses go all across the city. And I know the range of electric buses is limited. And so there's something to think about there too. I think could some electric buses be useful in some situations in certain weather types? I think yes, they could be useful for short distances in good weather. But there is a cost to that as well, and then adapting charging stations and stuff at where they're needed. Also, city transportation, using it, if you know, maybe incorporating city transportation with our current bus system. There's a lot of questions I have with that. Would there be, you know, public use of that transportation while the children are on the bus? So would they be riding with strangers, or would it just be kids? Are the bus drivers going to be trained for students? I think that's an important question. And yeah, or is it just the buses that are going to be used by the district, and maybe not the bus drivers or something like that? I'm not for sure. So there's a lot of questions there, but I'm open to definitely having a discussion about advancing ways to utilize electric buses and to maybe think about how to utilize some of the stuff that the city does.
Okay, thank you. Folks, I'm gonna get right to the point. This, from what I know and I understand, the bus system in Columbia is lacking. It would be a far reach, for the public school system to utilize public transportation in Columbia as it stands right now. And the biggest issue that I have with that, because I know if we all come together and get at the table, we can figure this out. I get that. But I just don't see how, as a parent, as a grandparent, that I will be comfortable knowing that my little grandbabies, now I'm gonna show my age, my grandparents. At one, I mean, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade would ride on a public transportation bus. I really have a big issue with that. However, I just think there's a better way to do this, and I don't think that that's the right way to do it right now. So I am opposed to using public transportation to get our students to school. I think that we need to provide safety for our children on the way to school, provide safety for them in the school, and provide safety for them to get back home. So I don't think the public transportation system is the way to do that. So I would say the public system and our buses that we have in the school system, yes, we do need to get away from the fuel that we use now. We do need to get away from the diesel. We do need to do all of those things. But we have to sit down and come up with a way to easily become efficient and do not hurt the environment, because transportation and public school is a big part of the success of public school. So we need to get together and figure out how we're gonna do that. Okay? That's what I said.
Thank you, Evelyn. Jean?
I'm gonna take my first 30 seconds and just say thank you for giving us a whole 3 minutes to answer these questions. We were at a panel forum last night where we had 1 minute for every question. And I feel like I'm talking really slow, like compared to last night where I felt like it was like, anyway, okay, everybody is 20 seconds. So to answer the question, we have all this time. I think for me, there are 3 things that I think about when I think about specifically the footprint from transportation. Since that's kind of the focus of the question. One is the tension that exists between having walkable and neighborhood schools and between having schools that have more racial and socioeconomic diversity in them, which is something that we struggle with every time, and we're about to struggle again, the board, because there's about to be redoing boundaries for some of the elementary schools. That's one thing. The second is, could we use city transportation, or are there ways that that can be incorporated? And the third is the busing itself. What is the busing look like? So in terms of the tension between just generally reducing the transportation distance that students have to get to school, I think everyone agrees that we don't want students on the bus for an hour, right? Which also means that the buses are traveling that far. That's problematic, especially for our youngest students. That means that we're looking at how do we create more diverse neighborhood schools? How do we create schools that are all really functioning at a high level so that every neighborhood and all of our students have opportunities no matter where they're living in the city, and they're not trying to get into a school across town or complaining because it's not working out for them in that. That's one thing. That's not an easy fix, but it's something that is getting looked at. The second is the idea of, could there be some sort of cooperation with city transportation. Right now, the law does not allow that. I think though that are possibilities. I understand the concerns, the safety concerns, especially for our youngest children, but right now, our high schoolers aren't eligible even for busing unless they live within, further, I should say, out further than 2 miles from the school. That doesn't mean that they all have cars. That doesn't mean when any student, even outside those 2 miles, if they're staying for after school sports, things like that. Some of that potentially could be alleviated if we had better bus routes in the city and if that were built up. And maybe there's a way that that can be worked on. But again, that's a community effort in being able to lobby for all of the option. And the third is just that there is a new bus contract that will be going into effect in 26-27 with newer equipment.
Carolyn, question number 5, is it?
We have solved the dilemma of what you had versus what we had. So now we have what you have. So we will be calling this question number 4. Hopefully it agrees with your question number 4. To take advantage of new federal funding opportunities for clean energy that were included in the Inflation Reduction Act, would you lead the school district in taking stronger steps towards decarbonizing district buildings, including by making them more energy efficient or fitting them with solar panels? Would you be willing to pursue resolutions and public discussions on this with municipal and legislative leaders?
And that's number 5 on our list. But
Yeah, no, this one, oh, that's still different than, okay.
As read,
Well, this is what was given to them in advance, I guess.
yes. Well. Okay, are we good now?
Yeah, go
Okay, okay. With pursuit to the resolution and public discussion on the municipal and legislative leaders, the answer is yes. I would be in favor of discussing that with legislative leaders. And anytime we have we can have a clear and clean air and cost saving, we must research and look for ways to bring savings to our school district. And if that includes us reaching out to other entities, including our legislature, to do that, I think that's because some of the funders will have to come through legislation. So I do think that, again, it's really important that we sit down as a group, as the board, and we engage everybody from the superintendent to our legislators to help come up with a viable solution that benefits the whole school district and that benefits the whole community. Because at the end of the day, it is about the totality of Columbia Public Schools and the community of which those schools are. Okay?
So in talking about, again, making our buildings more efficient, specifically the potential to help decarbonize them, to use solar panels. I think I'm gonna go back again to the facilities audit that was just completed. There is a lot of deferred. I'm supportive, again, of any of these efforts that we can do. And also want to recognize that there is a lot of deferred maintenance that needs to be done on our buildings, some of which will help with that energy efficiency. Some of which is honestly just basic repairs that need to happen so that things don't get worse. So I think the priority needs to be on making sure that our current buildings are fixed up and habitable, and in that process, in the best we can, in starting to introduce more energy efficient systems. I think something that will help generally, both with fixing the buildings and doing this deferred maintenance, and also with new builds, as we build new buildings where we have opportunities to have some of this available right from the beginning, is that the district recently, just in the last year, switched to something called construction management system, which means there is more flexibility when we're asking for bids for things. So whereas before you asked for an RFP for something that was very specific and got it, then any changes in materials, right? Something becomes cheaper, you find something that's might be more energy efficient, something like that. You had to go back and sort of almost get permission for all of that, because that's not what the bid is for. But now it's more like using a general contract. So now the district has, for a particular building project, sort of a max price. Just like you might get a quote for a residential thing and the contractor dealing with it. And there's more flexibility for them to be able to substitute some different materials or to look for some different things that all fit within that budget. And I think that will be to our advantage when we start thinking about trying to bring in some of these new systems and trying to get some different things that are more energy efficient. I also want to add, and it's related to the transportation question, I think from before, is that we talk about building new buildings, which we do sometimes need to do because of the way our district is growing and the student population. Part of that has to do with where are we locating those buildings? And if we can locate those buildings in the neighborhoods that have the population growth, then you can also reduce the transportation associated with getting kids to those schools. So again, all a bit interconnected, and one thing affects the other.
Yes, in order to decarbonize the district buildings, I think a way to do that is to, for the district to advocate for nuclear power. I think we can use those funds to maybe hire lobbyists to go to Jeff City. I know that there was a lobbyist that, got hired, for something in the board meeting last, school board meeting. I think, using electricity in Columbia is burning coal. And so I think we have to really put a magnifying glass on that because, switching to an electric bus isn't decarbonizing a vehicle if we're using coal to charge it. So it goes back to promoting nuclear energy for Columbia or Boone County. I think it also solar panels, I think are a good way to get energy that's doesn't have as much carbon offset or is sustainable, but there's also a manufacturing cost to that. And depending on where you get them, there's shipping costs, which cause carbon, and there's a cost to having sustainable energy. You know, with the solar panel, if it's a cloudy day, you're not going to get the energy. Here in Missouri, it's just, you know, it's not like California or Texas or something where, I mean, we get hailstorms and solar panels can be damaged by big hail. And you know, I mean, it can be cloudy for 2 or 3 weeks at a time in Missouri. So we just need to focus on retrofitting our buildings for long-term consistent energy, which I think right now would be natural gas until and electricity until we can really get a clean source of energy like nuclear power. Thank you.
Ready for question number 8, Nicole?
Yes. In 2022, Columbia voters approved an $80 million school bond issuance for building 2 new elementary schools. The current plans for the schools do not incorporate simple sustainable options like solar panels or options for sustainable water heating, such as solar heaters, heat pumps, or instant water heating. Would you support revising the plans to incorporate renewable energy options if the total cost of the project was altered by less than 5%?
Calvin, you're gonna go first. I call that question 8, it's actually question 6. Oh. Oh, okay.
So I apologize because I know that I mentioned the schools in the last question, so I feel like there's a little bit of repetition, but I will say a couple things. One, always in favor of difference having options and sustainable options. I think that that's really important. I think the other thing, a few things to consider when we start to think about it. One, as I mentioned before, the district now has a new construction management system in place, which does give more possibilities for changes to plans and for revisions and things to happen throughout the construction process. I think that's going to be a really good thing. It was intended initially and mainly, quite honestly, for savings, cost savings for the district, but I think it also opens up some possibilities of being able to go and ask the construction manager to consider other things. And I think that that's something to take into account as we start to think about that. I think I would just be really cautious in thinking about 5% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about an $80 million project, that's $4 million, which is a substantial amount of money. So again, it's a tension. There is obviously a long-term cost to climate change. We know that we need to be doing more to make everything more sustainable. We know that both as individuals, but also our bigger businesses, and in this county that, and in this Columbia, this part of Missouri, that does include the school district because of the number of buildings that are there. So want to try to consider the different options, but want to think about what is the immediate cost as well as the long-term cost, as long as the ongoing cost, as well as what would be the cost to repair those things if something happened. Because as I noted before, we do have a lot of deferred maintenance on buildings, and there is a fairly high cost that is associated with getting that done. The other concern would be safety concerns. That is not to imply that any of these renewable options are unsafe, but to think about what it means if you have an elementary school, where are you putting the solar panels on the property so that kids aren't running into them, right? Or the pole from recess isn't going off. Again, none of these things are insurmountable, but we want to make sure, the district needs to make sure that it is functioning within the law, within what is allowed by zoning, and what is going to be that immediate and long-term cost savings. And then balancing that with how do we also model that sustainability with our construction manager.
Right. John?
Yes, I think, to put, you know, if it's solar panels or, things of that nature at a higher cost on buildings, on new buildings, like Ms. Snodgrass said, that it's $4 million. And that's a lot of money, especially when we have a need for teachers right now. I think that the ultimate goal of the public education system is to educate students. And so, you know, $4 million could go in a lot of, could go a long way in keeping teachers in the district, retaining teachers in the district. And so spending extra money on a facility is hard to do. I think that there's a lot of things that need to be weighed. When it comes to instant water heating, I think that that's a good idea. I think I could support that. I think that, you know, it could be a strain on the power grid, especially since so many things are going to our electricity right now. I actually took a tour of the public housing facilities the last time I ran for school board and was informed that they are not putting natural gas in public housing, in all new public housing. And that's just an added strain on the current power supply that we have of electricity. And so it seems like we can forecast a big strain on our electric power grid if, everybody's charging their cars and we're not using natural gas and we're really just burning coal in the meantime as well. So, just switching to electricity is not offsetting carbon. It's just offsetting it somewhere else. Nuclear power is my answer to everything, really, it seems like, because I know it's a long-term goal, but we're talking about a long-term problem, and so we need the long-term goals to fix them. So in the meantime, natural gas is the least carbon emitting fossil fuel that we have, and so I would really focus on, in the meantime, using that to heat schools, and even if there was a way to generate electricity from it, it would still be better than burning coal. Thank you.
Okay, to answer that question, my answer is yes. I would like to see this change, especially if we can save our school district money and use it towards educating all of our students in sustainability opportunities. Education is really key to us reaching a satisfactory and a satisfied area of getting all of our public school systems, getting all of our systems up to par where they are up to date. And the environment is really important. And there's 4 things that I think about when I think about the questions. And one of them is human, social, economic, and environment. Having all of our facilities updated and brought in line with all the sustainabilities, like the doors, the windows, the roof, the panels, the heat solar panels, the heating units, the air conditioning units. Just think how important that is to the students and to the teachers and to everybody that's using that facility. It's really key that we get this done. The second thing that I want to bring up here is we look at the cost, but look at the rewards and the results. I say the rewards and the results outweigh the cost, because what we have to do, it is necessary and it is important because of the situation we're in today. So yes, I do think that we need all of our facilities updated. Thanks.
We have just one more question, and before we go to that, I want to just extend thank yous. I want to extend thank yous first off to all of you who came out to be part of this forum tonight and to partake in it. I'd also like to thank the 4 sponsoring organizations, Sierra Club, Renew Missouri, Climate Leaders at Mizzou, and PeaceWorks, and all the volunteers from those groups who worked on making this event possible. It's really appreciated. And then, of course, I want to thank all the candidates who came both now for this school board forum and also earlier for the city council forum. With that, I'll turn it over to Carolyn for the last question, which is a pretty quick one, I think.
It is a quick one, but a very important one. Will you be a champion for sustainability and reducing the carbon footprint of Columbia Public Schools by actively raising these issues in school board discussions?
You start off with Carolyn.
Yes, I think it is important to lower the carbon footprint of the district. Like I said, I think carbon does add to increased temperatures in our environment and in our climate. So for me to actively think about and come up with solutions to cut that carbon footprint down. It will absolutely be something that, I will be thinking about and raising, these types of questions, to the school board, to parents, to, administration, and to even students, you know, because they are the ones that are going to, have to deal with the increase, in carbon if we don't, start, you know, hacking away at it now. So yes, I will, bring up these issues in school board meetings and even outside of, school board. Thank you.
And I too, just like Don and every one of us up here, I do think that it's important that we become champions for our sustainability and reducing the carbon footprint of CBS and actively raise the issues in the boards. And I base my whole campaign on bringing everybody to the table to discuss the issue. And I base everything on getting out, getting everybody involved, encouraging folks to come and be a voice. I believe that I can be the voice on the board that will bring this up, and I want all of you to hold me accountable because I'm saying that right now in public. I will be that champion because it is so important. It's not so much about me, it's about our students and the education system called Columbia Public School System. So my answer is short, but yes, I will be your champion. And I just want to thank y'all for having us here tonight. And I was a little bit all over the place, but it's okay. I hope that you got my message. And I thank y'all for raising this issue because as I talk to a lot of people, this issue is not being mentioned to me a lot, but you did it, and I want to thank you for it. Sierra Club, thank you.
As a board member, I want to make sure that I am uplifting questions that are going to highlight where we can be more sustainable and where we can continue sustainability practices that we already have happening in our district. In a lot of our newer buildings, and as we do upgrades, we have automatic lights, right? The sensors in the rooms, which means they automatically turn off. We are making sure that we don't have leaks in our water pipes. Right now, we're doing testing on a lot of the water. There's a new state law that's going to go into effect about testing for lead, which means that we're also looking at all of the plumbing, right? And all of it. That's really important. Thinking about the transportation in the different ways you all raised. As I said briefly earlier, there is a new contract that was just awarded that doesn't start until the 26-27 school year because of the lead time that's out for buses. Newer equipment is going to be more energy efficient. Even stuff that isn't electric is going to get better gas mileage. And so you're going to have less emissions. Looking at boundaries when we're thinking about schools, thinking about how we increase place-based learning, thinking about how we get more students walking, biking, all the many, many things that have been raised. And also how as a board member can I support? We're gonna have a new COO or so Chief Operating Officer, so that they'll be in charge of all the facilities, looking at our facilities office, looking at when we're doing our maintenance. These are really important questions to ask when they come, when the administration comes to the board and says, here's what we're proposing, when the facilities committee is discussing, what are we going to do first to be able to raise these questions and say, what is the impact of this on our sustainability? What is the impact of what you're proposing on what it will do to our footprint in terms of sustainability? Encouraging our students to recycle, to compost, reducing waste in our buildings. Again, a multitude of things that can be done, some of which are happening now and can be uplifted, some of which aren't happening, and we can start to introduce and ask our administrators and our teachers and our students to bring these things into our schools. as a community effort and do that. I want to echo the thanks that others had for inviting us to be here and just really appreciate the opportunity to discuss and to have the focus on something very particular and how it relates to how our district functions and how we do our business. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to thank you folks at home who've been listening on the Zoom. And thank you, everybody. And anybody wants to help back up, that would be great. We will sign off the Zoom now, I guess. Peter and Carolyn, thank you, and thanks again to everyone. Have a good one.